going through the book of Mark, and it was in chapter 7, which I read some time back, and this thing struck me, more than has done before in my normal Bible reading. The concept that Jesus Christ, the Pharisees are bothered about the behavior of his disciples. And then he tells them they have a fine way of creating rules for themselves, that they take something, refine it, make it look so godly, so that they now are very serious in keeping the rule they have come up with. And that way, he says, it's a wise kind of way of keeping aside the commandment of God. Reading, see, just a minute. Because he gave the example that instead of honoring your father and mother, you can say that what was meant for them, you have given to God. And therefore, you don't need now to take care of your parents because you've given to God. And I mean, it just occurred to me how easy it is to be so busy in the king's business on what we have created ourselves, and looks very nice, but has nothing to do with the commandment of God. And you see that as a result of that is when people will be told, I never knew you. I mean, you are busy, but really, was I part of that mission? And so I started feeling that there's need to keep asking ourselves, how did I get this? Why do I do this? Why do we go for missions? Why do we say what we say? I think it is important that, because I don't think anybody will be excused on the account that I didn't know when the information was available, because the Bible is available to us. We have a copy of it and we know how to read. So if it's basically that we were lazy, so I realized, oh Lord, help me. Yeah, because it's a very, very serious matter. And particularly when something has become the norm, the accepted way, it's very easy to assume this is the way. And I was telling that I've been speaking in quite a number of meetings and realizing we can never ignore the impact of our history on the way we think. But our history is no excuse for us to continue on that way of thinking. The fact that we were dominated does not mean that we dominate and allow others to dominate us. And when I mean by others, is simply a belief that comes from another that sounds so good that we take it without examining it. Yeah, so those are some of the things that I'm currently thinking about. I'm grateful to God for the journey, for a mind to think, to question, to wonder, and to see God's goodness in this land of the living. So I'm very, very grateful. I was assigned a mission on last Sunday, and I gave a doctor, a neighbor here, who went with another doctor. According to the report, I remember trying to get where he wrote, they had a very good time, though there was, I think the chaplain or whatever the number was given said they were not aware that Kit was going, but we explained to him that they didn't need to be, as long as you are there. But he said they had a good time, they preached, they shared, and the students gave their lives to the Lord. Yeah, so that's what he said. And those are, for me, are some of the things that I am asking myself. What does giving your life to the Lord mean for a Form 1, Form 2, Form 4 in Kenya today? What does it mean when people gather together, they shake themselves, sing some things, and then call it worship? Is it really worship? And if we continue sometimes the way we are, honestly, will Christ be Lord in the hearts of men and women as they make their everyday decisions? Or will it be like a message I was just listening to as I was waiting for this meeting, where you are equipped, you have the gun, but it is so under your things that if a thief came, you'd have to tell him, hold on, I go looking for my gun. I mean, a weapon that is so hidden that you can't access it immediately cannot help you in time of danger. So I'm realizing that, yes, we need to be quite alert. We need to have an attitude of the people in Ukraine where you do not sleep. You do not know when the enemy is coming and where it's coming from. And so you must be always dressed in a way that either run away, fight back, or whatever. But we are in a war zone, and that consciousness needs to be put in us. That's why, for me, repeating what other people have said without verifying it from the scriptures is not going to be. It's not going to be. We need to listen to the master. So I'm grateful for fellowship. I don't know whether I need to say anything. Ruth, I see you on the board. I saw your picture. I saw your invitation, and I was encouraged because I tried to get in touch and I couldn't get in touch with you. And Adrian says that he doesn't know you. Adrian, I know Ruth. She's my girl, even though now looking like an old woman, but she's my of the people with whom we have been sharing the gospel. And sincerely, it doesn't look like they got the gospel, because if they did, how is it that they are not getting A's and adequate A's? Yeah, so that for me is not amusing, and we must check. I mean, what are we preaching? How is our preaching and the mentor abilities? Or is it the quality of teachers that they are having? You know, those kind of things in my mind should be checked, because we can keep talking to ourselves thinking we are communicating the gospel, but we really do well. We've been on for many years. This group started before I got married in Nyadara over 40 years ago. So we've kept well. If sincerely this gospel was having impact, Nyandarua would be the county to talk about. But, so we need to pray for the message. I like Mrs. Adrian's testimony about God providing money. You know, the acts that follow those who believe. We need to ask God to be present in our preaching, in our teaching, and that we are not just preaching the gospel, but looking to the whole man and looking how else, even without involving the bigger group. Ruth, welcome to share with us. So these are the Nairobi kind of people where we meet once a month for fellowship. Yes, God bless. Yeah, they are all very young people. This John Nganga is also a friend of ours. We met in Kisumu. So the name is the same, but he's a friend of ours. He was a young man. He got married. Now he has adults. All these people, I met them when they are young men, like Derito here. Now his people have graduated from university. Yeah, so we are enjoying God's goodness in this land of the living.
Amen, amen. Wow, what a joy to be here with these people, and especially to see Mom. I call her Mom with all humility, because she took up that role when I was young, innocent from the village, and the few homes I would visit in Nairobi was the Nganga's home, and I would feel so at home. So about what she has said about missions, I am among the mentees that she mentored from all over Kenya. We would converge in our home at, I think it was South B or South C, and we eat, we sleep, we go for missions from there, and it was such a joy. Thank you so much, Mom and Dad, for keeping it and showing us the way that it can be done. We can be Christians when we are young adults, when we are old, and even in old age, as they call it, aging time, we can still keep being Christians and serve God. So I'm very, very grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Nyandarua team. I got to know about you, I think 2019 or 2019, when you invited me to preach or to teach on substance use or substance abuse at Njambini Boys. It was a lively a memorable moment for me. So the Nyandarua people, I may not know you individually, but you have been part of my journey, and by the fact that you involve me in your missions. And I really want to appreciate also a lady called Charity Waithima. She's the one who introduced me to you. But that, I am a KSCF Met member because I came from Meru. Though I really must confess I'm not very active there nowadays, but I thank God for the many things that through this KSCF fellowship. I thank God that He has been faithful over the years. Yes, I am born again. I may not remember the date or the day, and I think Mam Becky bears me witness. We who are born of pastors, we rarely even remember those days because we were told, we just lived the faith and found ourselves in the faith. And so what God has been doing is infilling with the Holy Spirit, guiding and saying, this is wrong, this is right, and we just follow on. And that has been my journey. People find it interesting when I say, I don't know when I got saved. I can't pinpoint that day and say, this was the day. But I found myself as a child in the Tukutendereza group. So some people here may not have had an encounter with the Tukutendereza, but as a little child, maybe 4 or 5 years, I remember copying the testimony of the older ladies. And sometimes we would talk of things that I never knew what they were, but at that stage, that's how God worked with me. And I thank Him for walking with me through the journey. Yes, when Mom talks of me being married, Mom, I've done 27 years. Enoch and Wesley are out of the house. They are big men out there. We have a younger one who is at Form 4. And God has really blessed us with the children. And really, I cannot regret having served the Lord. My husband today is sharing at Tongata Rongai Sitam Church. And he's talking on a subject, he's training counselors on the same issues of counseling with the substance use disorder. And we agreed, let him go, let me take up my mission here. So finally, this meeting is taking place. I'm so grateful, Brother Adrian. We've been patiently waiting, and the day surely has come. Sure. However, with the Bible talks of the fear not, and that's what we are going to talk about. Many a times you may not be confident that you're so sure with what you're sharing, because this is a combination of psychology, Bible, and all that. So I'll ask us to have an open mind to interrogate, as we have been are requested to do, what we are going to share from the Word of God, and even from maybe aspects of counseling psychology, and ask ourselves what will work for us today to dispel the fears that we have. I look at this team, having also heard the testimonies, and that's why I really felt I needed to come and sit with you and hear the testimonies of what God is doing in each of you and your family's life, so that I have a point of connection. I feel that you are good Christians. You've been in churches. You've been in KSCF. I heard somebody talking about several meetings that they have attended. I hear a man here saying she's been involved in teaching and preaching in different places. And yet, we ask about how do we dispel the fear nots. And so today I said I'll come just with my own fears, because I have my own fears. Psychology doesn't even help you to take away the fear. Some people will say we read people's minds, but I'll say that is a lie. We can never be able to do that. And that's why we count on people to give us their stories so that we use it to help them. And so we are just as normal human beings as everyone else, going through bereavements, going through pain, going through all manner of issues that people go through in life. And therefore, I come as a sister to all of you for us to explore this subject and see and hear what God is telling us concerning our fears, concerning things that create in us anxiety. However, I am going to say that I won't major so much on the fear because really it's easier to handle fear. I just reasoned maybe why you expected counseling psychologist to share is because things have gone beyond the fear. They have reached worry, they have reached the anxiety level. And therefore, we'll be exploring more on anxiety because that's the one that I feel maybe that's where you are not able to, or we are not able actually to handle, because sometimes it's quite a psychological issue that may require a bit of intervention here and there for it to disappear. And that's where I am. That's where I'm coming in. And I hope you're hearing me well. I'll ask as we move on, you can put up your camera. I get to put some faces on our just to know who was in with your faces. And let me just hear confirmation that I am loud and clear so that I proceed.
Yes, you are very clear on my end.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So we agreed. I'm not an expert with the PowerPoint, so don't worry the way they look. They are just a guide to help us to move on. So I don't know, Brother Adrian, if maybe, let me see if I'm not, am I allowed to share really? Adrian, help
Yes,
me share.
yes, you are. You click on
Yes.
the square that is having an arrow facing up. There's a square near the microphone.
Yeah, I know. Yes.
Present now. You click on it. It will open 3 windows. Where you share on the window. I hope you have opened the PowerPoint on your laptop.
Sure, I am. I'm even on it.
So you go to when you are on the present now, you choose the window. Don't go to the entire screen. Don't go to the tab. You choose a window. Present a window.
Okay, let me see. Then I have to go back. So I do the window.
Yes.
Okay, sometimes these things we forget. The more you stay without sharing, it takes off. Am I there? If I'm not, because you have the PowerPoints, I think you can share. I don't need to waste time on that. I always believe in doing what I am more confident with and helping us to move faster. So
let me move on then.
Yeah, I think it will be easier for us to go that way. So you're there? I wouldn't want us to waste time.
Yes. Yes, you have things on table.
Yes, thank you so much. The problem with the PowerPoint is that now, as much as I wanted to know you, I may not be able. But let's proceed. That's the theme of this meeting, though the topic is fear not. we're talking about enjoying God's sense of security from fears. And so we are talking about security. We'll be defining a number of ones, but really not defining, because these are things we know. So I want us to start ourselves off by reading this passage, which will be our guide, which will help us come back and forth around the fears that we go through. So the Bible in Isaiah 41:10 says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Do not fear the king of Babylon, of whom you are afraid. Do not fear him, declares the Lord, for I am with you to save you and to deliver you from his hand." This passage, I looked at it as one of the ones that ground the word of God on fear not. It helps us to come back and say, God, you know I'm bound to fear. How many times? So many times. And therefore, God in the Bible allowed that we have like our 365 fear not. Somebody says it's fear not for every day of the year. But even with all this said, we definitely know we fear a lot. What are some of our fears? What are the causes of the fears? Maybe going back to ourselves, we may be asking ourselves, do we fear because we don't have things sorted out? What is the cause of fear that we go through day in, day out? Yet when we look at what God is saying, he knew he has created in us the part of us that reacts to fear. And if you look at the biological brain and where the fear comes from and where it is activated, you will surely believe that fear was created for a purpose. The people who talk about evolution will say fear is an emotion that helps us to survive. Even biblically, we must agree that fear helps us actually to survive. Just imagine if you're meeting with a lion, and I live in Ongata Rongai, where sometimes lions are seen roaming behind our university, and we know they have killed some people. Imagine you're meeting with this lion, and there's no fear in you. Of course, you're not a Maasai who is trained to confront the lions. And so you go straight and meet with the lion. You're sure you will die. It won't just say, I'm not going to devour you because you are not afraid. And so fear is inbuilt in us for survival purposes. There's so many things that we cannot do. Some of us became Christians out of fear of hell. And so maybe as a child, if I didn't fear hell to the extent that I feared it, I may not have become initially a Christian. But thank God for my dad who modeled love, which helped me to understand God as a God of love. And so what I am saying is that fear is a normal emotion. It's within us. But what is emotion? Emotions are complex reaction patterns involving experiential, behavioral, and physiological elements. Emotions are how individuals deal with matters or situations they find personally significant. What does this mean then? If something is not significant to you, it won't evoke such great emotions in you. But if something is so significant, they will raise some emotions. And fear, worry, and anxiety are examples of fears that are evoked, especially when there is an aversive or something that is confronting us, that is not proper, that is not good, that causes us to feel like running away. So fear is a basic emotion, very basic in us. We don't need to think about it. How do we measure the extent of fear, the extent of worry, the extent of anxiety? It is in a spectrum. When we are just fear kindogo, we say, I was afraid I would have been late for class. Afraid. You know, not a big fear. Or I was exams. And on the extreme, I was so terrified. So you can see the spectrum. And what we call maladjustment in fear is when now we are at that verge of breaking down because we are so fearful. So we have said fear is a basic emotion. But let me read what I found in the dictionary. I need to check. Funny enough. Fear is a basic intense emotion aroused by the detection of imminent threat involving an immediate alarm reaction that mobilizes the organism by triggering a set of physiological changes. This includes a rapid heartbeat, redirection of the blood flow away from the periphery towards the gut, tensing of the muscles, and a general mobilization of the organism. And I want you to take note of this mobilization. You run, the fight or flight emotion. You want to run away from what is happening when you're fearful. You want to feel like, I can't stand here and wait. Now imagine if that becomes the normal stimuli every time you are afraid. And that's why maybe this group decided, let's call somebody who can analyze and help us to deal with fear and have security in God. So fear is an appropriate, present-oriented, and short-lived emotion. You don't stay in fear. How do people look like when they are afraid? You can see, we open our eyes wide and we are like, yes, I need to do something. Then what is worry? Worry now becomes a state of being. It's a state of mental distress or agitation due to concern about an impending or anticipated event, threat, or danger. When we are preoccupied with what will happen to me, what am I going to do about my life? What is, those small things that keep us agitated, and we feel like we are not at peace. What can I do here? With the fear, once you run away or once the problem is resolved, you calm down and your system is not overworked. But with worry, it keeps on going and coming back, going and coming back. People who are worried, they're so worried about loss, financial crisis, debts. I am stressed. I hear it nowadays, even little children, primary school telling me, I'm stressed. And I'm wondering, you understand what stress is? So we are so worried about so many things. And when we don't allow ourselves to deal with the worry and we extend it, we continue thinking of the negative thing, of the loss we are going to experience, we remain in that state, and even our minds are so crowded, we cannot be able to decide the next move. Are we together? Hello? Tuko pamoja?
Yes.
Yes. Now, we talked about security in Christ. But I thought of this defining what insecurity is. Insecurity is a feeling of inadequacy or lack of self-confidence and inability to cope, accompanied by general uncertainty and anxiety about one's goals, abilities, or relationship with others. So when we are insecure, we fear, we worry, and actually the word used here, anxiety. We become anxious because we are not grounded. We don't feel like we are safe enough to assert ourselves and do what we are supposed to do. And so what I want us to realize is that these things affect our minds. These things affect the way we think. These things affect our feelings. These things affect actually our spirituality. Because when we lack peace because of worry, because of fear, our spirituality is affected also. We are not growing. Many a times you realize that when you are really worrying, you really even read the Bible, you really feel comfortable even to share the word of God. You're always like, what is going to happen? And fear occupies us. The other one is now anxiety. And the one I said we'll dwell a bit on. Anxiety is distress or uneasiness of mind caused by fear of danger or misfortune. So this can be very perceived. Imagine nothing has happened, but you're fearing. Maybe you have a child in Form 4 like I have this time. And I'm so like, oh, what will happen when the exams come? It's an election year. How many days are they going to lose? What are they going to do? All those things that are so futuristic, they have not happened, they just so perceived. We are worried about them and we are thinking about them so much. So there is an honest attempt, or worry can be defined as an honest but tense desire. When you want something so desperately, I'm so anxious to get that next assignment. I'm so anxious to deliver this message so well. I'm so anxious about how to make ends meet. And we continue with that, status in our minds, and it causes us even now to start having things like stomach ulcers, blood pressure becomes, high. We may experience even some people when they're anxious, or sometimes when people are anxious, they experience even psychological symptoms like diarrhea, sweating, anxiety attack, and it can be bad. So this emotion called anxiety is experienced when we are entering potentially dangerous situations. We may feel like, when I get there, what's going to happen? But what we should note is that it's so futuristic. So just to help us make the differences with, no, before I get there, let's look at the types of anxiety. Anxiety can move not from the level of norm to become a disorder, meaning only that we like calling them in our language disorders, but actually it's a mental illness. It's a mental sickness. It's just like depression, schizophrenia, and such. There are several types of anxiety disorder. They are grouped according to what people do when they're in that situation. We have panic disorder, where somebody is just standing and they start shaking and they start feeling sweating, and somebody can even fall down and remove the foam and all that. Sometimes this is experienced in girls' schools so much. I know sometimes you say there was a demonic attack, children were falling down and rolling, and then we call it hysteria and all that. It could be related to the level of anxiety. Why? Because girls, when they are worried, they don't want to throw stones like boys. And so when boys are rioting and throwing stones, girls experience what commonly is known as hysteria. And what do? We call pastors and priests and everyone else to come and lay hands on them. Yes, it helps, but I've seen some situations where it requires somebody to be cancelled out of the whatever they are going through, so that they sober up and they start looking at the situation with normalcy. So when we see those girls who are falling all the time, let's think, could it be something beyond the spiritual matters? Although most of the times they fall during CU. I don't know whether it has stopped. Anyway, next is phobia. Phobia is just a specific fear of something. There are people who have agoraphobia. There are people who have phobia for just small animals. There are some of us who have phobias for snakes and all that. Maybe if I asked people to list their phobia or their intense fear of something, I know a number of us would have written 1, 2, 3, 4. We have what we call generalized anxiety disorder. This is a situation that is really not good, because it means this person is in a state of anxiety throughout. So they are not sleeping well. They have to take a painkiller. And please don't tell me Christians don't experience this. This is very common among Christians. So somebody says, I have not slept for the last what? Insomnia can be a symptom of anxiety disorder. They are always on the edge. They are anticipating something bad is going to happen. And many a times they feel like they want to hide, they want to, to keep themselves so protected, because something wrong is going to happen anytime to them. You can imagine that state all the time. They are not able to function normally. They cannot go teach. They cannot go do anything. And this was really experienced during Corona. There are people up to today, they have not been able to go to church because they are still fearing Corona. There are people today who cannot do 1, 2, 3 because of the anxiety. Then we have the obsessive compulsive disorder. This is where somebody repeats things time and again. So, umefunga mulango, maybe thieves came and broke into your house and took something. Thank God you survived. But from that day, you close the door, you repeat, you check again and again and again and again, repetitive behaviors. Instead, where somebody trusts that I've done something, they cannot trust. So they repeat the same behavior, the same thing over and over again. But then we have another common one in Kenya, in Africa, with all the trauma around us. Yesterday, I saw, I think, 8 die on a road accident. The other day, somebody is shot dead. The other times, you what? It's election time. Nyandaru is not usually so affected, but imagine people within Nakuru area and the Joro and all those places where we have this post-election violence time and again. People live under a lot of fear. And post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is one of the major causes of anxiety disorder, maybe in our continent, in our communities. So we need to be very careful when we are talking about fear, stress, worry, and know the limits, the spectrum. Where is this person that I'm talking to? Where am I as a family person. Maybe it started by just feeling, there's too much demand on this. I'm required to do 1, 2, 3. I wasn't able to do. Now I'm not able to do the other thing. The next thing you realize is that you're spending sleepless nights, and there is a lot that is happening in your life. There is one of the anxiety that is very interesting, which we call the social anxiety. There's some things that are sent there on how it starts and the cycle. I may not want to go through them. If interested, you will. But just to mention, some of these anxieties started when we were very young, even including in our mom's womb. If our moms were worried, if they were suffering from anxiety, if there was rejection at birth, all that would contribute to who the person comes out as an adult. So they need a lot of loving environment to change what somebody experienced when they were young. I will say this because I can see some of you are young parents. Please consider the 4 types of parenting, because parenting has a big bearing on how especially our children will turn out to become. Many times we give what we received, but is it really appropriate? It's just a while ago I had a client and they say, my husband beats my children seriously, or our children, these are teenagers, these are young adults in the university, but he will beat them up and he will tell, and they're boys. And I'm imagining at university 21, 22, and you're still being beaten by your dad. How do you feel? And we're trying to explore the solutions. And she tells me one thing we can never do in my home is talk to my hubby about issues. He believes what his dad did, who was a policeman, is what he needs to do. And I was just lost for, can I say, once of counsel, where you're stuck with the client because you're seeing where the problem is, but you don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to help this person out of that situation. So anyway, parenting styles, please. Much as we are Africans and we were brought up in Africa with all the hardships, with all the challenges, I can see maybe not all of you maybe are from Nairobi. I know the rural life could be almost the same. Let's love on our children. Let's practice, not even the love that the Bible describes, which in most African setup, I think I'll borrow what Mom Rebecca said, that the language has a bearing on how we understand even the word of God. Because the word of God is clear on loving. But then when it comes to parenting styles, most of the African parents will pick the verse on spare the rod, spoil the child. And so there is no love, there is no affirmation, there is nothing that brings this child to you. All you can do is beat, beat, beat. And the ones for nowadays, they would rather be on the streets of Nairobi eating nothing or eating that there than experience this. So even as teachers, because I believe maybe some of you could be teachers, I don't know you a lot, we can be able to train parents on the parenting styles, and we choose the best and best democratic. Even God is so democratic. He allows us to have the free will and to think. But then he says, if you follow my ways, I give you 2 ways, choose. If you choose death, surely you're going to die. But I encourage you to choose life. So we can help these people to choose life. The other thing that I see here is if we are isolated, sometimes we isolate ourselves or we isolate our children, not because we need to do so, but because that day school there is not performing, We have to put them in boarding schools because boarding schools are performing, and I don't have time for all this CBC thing. And so what do? We isolate this person. Yes, they'll be in the midst of other children, but they will lack the attachment with the important other, the caregiver at a very early stage. So as people who are trainers, and we are going to talk to people about these issues of stress and fear and anxiety, or even in our preaching, let's encourage children, especially at high school, to love one another. Let me pause here and say, we are still together, yeah? Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Amen.
Amen. May I pause and speak to us because we are going to high schools? I am one of the people that are really, really, I don't want to call it passionate, but, you know, I'm moving like with a holy anger, hasira ya kimungu, to address the issue of bullying in our high schools. It's not so long ago when we saw the Nairobi school boy who was beaten by prefects to a point of going home in diapers, a boy who had passed to get to that high-cost school. It's another day we saw another one at Alliance being forced to visit the graves for whatever reason, that it's a cultural thing they do as a rite of passage for Form 1s. It's just the other day in Eastlands where a child who speaks good English was monolized by others because he cannot be in that school while he is coming from a high and a higher class of a family. I thought the schools in Kenya, everybody can go there and can learn. But in that school, I think it's reserved for the poor of the poor. And so if you pass, if you want to join there, you are not maybe allowed. And so this person needs to be monolized until he has to leave the school and parents and to look for another one. Cases of depression. So much is happening, friends, in our schools that is going to cause our children, or has already caused a lot of damage to our children. This year alone, January, February, I visited more than 10 schools, yes, in Kajiado County. And the story is the same. I did even a research in a neighborhood extra county school. The number one thing that popped up is bullying. Even from force, I'm being bullied. So I was asking, who is bullying who? So as we package our message as KSCF, as people of God, please let's address the felt needs. I come from a university that is very spiritual, and we attend services Tuesday and Thursdays. And for some reasons, we think that can inoculate us from, protect us from whatever is happening. Lo and behold, let Corona come, and students are not being watched, and they are not coming to school where bags are checked and everything. And what happened? For the first time, we have buried young people out of substance use, out of strange relationships. What am I saying, friends? Let's not do KSCF just to fulfill our, like we are doing it. Let's address the felt needs, because by doing so, we will be able to save our children from getting anxious, from getting sinking into anxiety and depression. Remember that 1 out of 4 people in Kenya is has suffered depression during the corona or within this time. And so let's see what we can do. Not just preaching only and saying, get saved. Beyond salvation, what are things that you're going through? Call them by their name. and let's pray over them and encourage them to trust in God. Please pick this URL. Please check, listen to what this person is talking about anxiety so that it's clear to you. I thought we would have time to watch it together, but in the interest of time, pick it and watch on your own. So we've seen the differences between fear, worry, anxiety, and they are quite clear. Fear is short-term, worry is a bit more persistent and intrusive. You cannot, it doesn't disappear quickly or immediately, but it's not a big problem. When it gets to anxiety, it's more intense, it's futuristic and pathological, or it's a sickness. It has very many biological or physical symptoms. Then we proceed. Yes. So what are the main causes of fear, worry, and anxiety? I put them together because I didn't want to keep on moving from one from the other because they are actually very related. I want you to pause where you are, whether you're watching as a family or you're watching alone or you're listening alone. I want you to take a moment and maybe write or think through your 3 main fears or worries or anxieties that and just ask yourself, where do they come from? Things that you don't want to think about them, but they're still intruding in your mind. What are these 3 key ones and what are the causes? Before we proceed, I'll give you just a minute just to reflect so that we also take a break. Okay, so what are the main causes of fear, worry, and anxiety? I will mention a few that I have, maybe to add to what you have already said. Maybe, and I'll start with this one because maybe you've seen somebody or even yourself, you've experienced a lot of anxiety, maybe even from childhood. You see these people who they cannot stand before people, or before they do something, they sweat, they fidget, they what, and they cannot really say why they have to do that. Some of those could be having a genetic predisposition, that somebody has that within their genetic makeup, and they are not in control of what is happening. So we say it's genetic, it's biological. They may not have caused it. Who sinned? Is it my mother or me? Who sinned that I have an anxiety disorder? And it is recognized, it is known, even from where we looked at the DSM-5, the one that we use to diagnose. It is some fears, some anxieties are quite genetic. What do we do about that? Pray about them and just present them to maybe a physician who can be able to prescribe medication. The other thing I look at is the temperaments. I hope you'll give me another day to talk about temperament and personality, because it's beyond this forum. For those who don't know, I know quite a number of others know about temperaments. But depending on who we are, some people are just have that predisposition. They cannot stand before people, or they really need to be so well prepared if they are going to do it. While others are easy to stand before people, and others now when others are not going before people, others fear even darkness, others fear staying alone, and so the personality of the person can predispose one to some level of anxiety or fear. But the other one is deficiencies in neuron activity, or when one is withdrawing from drugs, like something like marijuana. If somebody was taking bangi and they stop, most likely they may experience a lot of anxiety. And that's why actually they keep on going back to it. Some types of illnesses may also cause people to feel anxious. For example, when we are even told maybe you have a lump in your system, you may not wait until you are told whether it's malignant or not, or what is happening. You may self-diagnose and say, now I'm dying, I have cancer. And the worry and fear can start from there. We fear because we learned to fear. We say monkeys see, monkeys do. And so if somebody had parents who were so fearful, or people around them who were so fearful, so afraid, so like it's always in danger all the time, they may develop that way of coping with the life, and they may exhibit fear and anxiety. Then, of course, as we said earlier on, traumatic experiences, a car accident, a rape, a sodomy, thieves breaking into your house, whatever bad incident that we go through leaves our minds with that kind of feeling of anxiety and fear. And if we are not careful, it can develop to what we call post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, which needs medication or behavioral way, counseling ways of handling it. Media, media-induced fear, especially in children. When they watch all these cartoons and they watch all this evil that is going around in what they see, they may develop fear. Even some of us who grew in the village, those traditional scary tales we were told, those who were told, some were very scary that you would keep on running away from this Kelima Limo. We used to be told of a story of a Kelima Limo that nobody has ever seen. I think it's the ghost of today. Anybody who has ever seen those ghosts that they say in school they have seen? It's something undefined, but it can cause in some people very intense fear. So even when we are exposing children, and please, I am an advocate of let the young children not be brought up by TVs and media. You leave your child with those house managers. I don't like calling them house helps. You leave them there, and they know the best way to keep your child quiet so that they do all the household chores, or they go to do their things, is to put the child facing the TV, and this child watches all the Nigerian movies with their witchcraft and what. You see your child just having nightmares and fears, and then you're wondering, why is my child always like this? Remember those initial messages that are written in the brain. If you are a believer of what we call the tabula rasa, the mind is empty, and so we are at birth, all we do is write on it. If you are a believer of that, you know for sure, if the first memories of your child rotate around that witchcraft that the house help predisposed to your child to, this child will have fears. Somebody had a house help who used to sing this song when it came out, suicidal, suicidal, suicidal. Believe you me, that child at 14 was depressed and was suicidal. And for some of us who would trace what was happening then, we remember that this child was predisposed first, among the first memories is suicidal, even before they learned how to pronounce the word. So please, much as TV media has come as a deliverance from, us taking care of the little babies and they're being left with these cartoons and everything, we are creating a serious problem. The next one is religious beliefs. I already gave my example. You go to heaven by fear or by loving God. Religion, not just for you don't get saved, you go to hell. There's some very rigorous religious practices in some cults, in some communities, in some, people who are sometimes even born again, but they have not been removed from the traditions. They will practice things that keep people in a lot of fear. Just imagine, for years and years, living knowing that my shosho was shosho, great-great-grandmother, cursed my grandmother, and therefore my mother is cursed, or my father is cursed, and so we are cursed. And you look at the lineage and you start seeing these things, it is an unbelief. Unless you turn to Christ and denounce those beliefs, then the person will live with a lot of fear. There are people who cannot do some things. They say, if I build in Ushago, nitarogwa, nitakufa. Fear. Uncertainty about the future, especially now that life is so, especially during Corona, it's like, will this thing ever come to an end? Thank God I'm speaking when it is over, and we are at least able to run normally. But still, we are anxious about the fuel prices, about what. So the uncertainty about the future is really a major cause of fear and anxiety. But thank God who tells us that He is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and we cannot be afraid. Family pressure, whether nuclear, extended, family pressure can cause a lot of issues. Of course, for not just the young people, we many times tell the young people are suffering from peer pressure, but we don't realize how much we are pressured as adults. So alinjenga nyumba ya namna hii, especially ladies. When will you build ours? When will you? I thank Mom for her dress code. Mom, and I say this sincerely, that you have a dress code that I've seen on you for the last how many years. And it tells me we can choose to be unique and not to be pressured. We can, assert ourselves and say, this is me. So peer pressure causes a lot of anxiety, not only for young people, but even for mature people. May God help us. So having considered the causes of fear, worry, and anxiety, because I combined them, let me quickly see how we can deal with them. I'll look at the general principles, both from the spiritual and the psychological. The first thing that I see in both is that we cannot deal with the fear, worry, and anxiety if we don't know what we are dealing with. Language is interesting. we have to call something by its name for us to be able to address it. And so we have to identify the fear. What is it that gave me sleepless nights? What is it that is making me feel like I have butterflies in the stomach? There are sometimes I'm invited to speak somewhere, and I feel like I'm prepared, but still I feel like something is not right. And I have to ask myself, what is it? What is at stake that is making me feel like I am afraid or I won't deliver? And I've told God, help me that irrespective of the crowd, all I am doing is your service. Help me serve. And so identify the fear and know what it is. Label it, as I've said, and be aware of it. Know how it comes. Sometimes one of the things we do in counseling is helping people to keep a journal. When you journal things, when you write down, especially your emotional graph, that Monday I was feeling like this, Tuesday I was feeling like this, this is how I handled things, this is, so you're able to quickly pick up the triggers or what causes this anxiety to develop. Then allow yourself time to process this situation or the trigger. Don't be in a hurry to either deny it and say, me, I'm not like that. So there's nothing that maybe the person is accusing me for, or accept it too quickly and say, yeah, I'm like that. You know, some of us just accept and say, me, I'm like that. Hata wakiteta, ndivyo naongea. But it's causing trouble. It's causing you anxiety because you don't know what you're going to do to say next time. Maybe it's some behavior that is creeping up. Don't be too comfortable to accept it. So give yourself time to process and you know what to do. Then seek solutions for obvious challenges of life. Sometimes we sit over problems so much, and I'll speak to Christians because I'm one of them. We Christians, especially the maturer Christians, we suffer a lot because of trying to keep the face of Christianity. What will happen if I share with the Mom Becky that maybe I am depressed? And I keep on pondering and thinking about that. You don't share the problem you think has disappeared, but it's still within you. Maybe it's a sin. You keep it to yourself. Maybe it's, you know, all things keep on accumulating. And as they accumulate, they are actually triggering your brain to be permanently on the edge, anxiety. So what else do you need to know after or to do after doing all that? You need to be able to seek help, especially the cognitive behavioral therapy is very good. Sometimes you don't just need to go to the psychologist or to the counselor. You can do some of these things alone. We use the relaxing, taking time to think about the issue, and the breathing exercises. Maybe before we do them, let me see. Yeah. At this point, are we still together? Please confirm to me we are together. Yeah, I want you to practice the breathing exercise. I know maybe you know this or you don't know, but let's try it. Let's see what happens. Even if we don't relax completely or we get rid of whatever was disturbing us, by the time we do the 3 breathing exercises, you'll feel your blood, your mind clearer. And so it helps to push oxygen to the brain, and then you're able to relax and take, and be able to move on. Even in an exam, I tell my students, please practice breathing exercises because they help. So I'll ask you, wherever you're sitting, please sit comfortably. Let your feet be grounded. Sikanyange chini kabisa. You know, there's like me, I'm privileged with the height downwards, so I'm lowering my seat so that they can be grounded. You feel that your feet are on the ground and feel them. Just feel your feet on the ground, and then you sit up very relaxed, as the way we say sit squarely, quite relaxed, and then let's do at least 3 deep breaths. How we do it? You breathe through the nostrils, and then you breathe out with the mouth. But then also let the breath, hold the breath for some times. And then like count 1, 2, 3, then you release pole pole. It helps to introduce a relaxation in the brain, and the brain is able to absorb more oxygen, and your thoughts are clear. Are we able to do that? Somebody can respond. Anyone we are working with here?
Yes.
Adrian?
The instructions are clear.
They are clear, yeah?
Yes,
so,
they are.
On a count of 3, let's all take a deep breath. You can close your eyes. A deep breath. Feel the air filling your stomach. In. Hold a bit. Pole pole. 1, 2, 3. I hope you can hear my breathing. We try again a second time. In. Hold. Out through the mouth. At that time, breathe in. Hold. Out through the mouth. Amen. Those are breathing exercises. Remember when a priest was asked by a lady, my husband, anytime he comes, he beats me up. And the priest noticed that the lady speaks a lot. What did he say? Go and take some water, put in the mouth, and don't speak until he has changed and he has come to the table. And that solved the problem. The breathing exercise can help us save ourselves from a lot of anxiety or anxiety-causing triggers. Because if somebody is insulting you and you take your time to take the deep breaths, you are not going to speak so quickly. Even when you feel your mind is so racing so fast, you can still do the same, and it will assist on the immediate. But we are going to say more. Let me look at the spiritual part of it. Of course, as Christians, we pray. We claim God's promises in Scripture. Remember, we said there are 365 fear nots in the Bible. Now we have Google. You can Google them, and you can claim them daily. Yes, we trust in God. He has promised to be with us. He has promised to provide for us. He has given us even assurance that he will be with us to the close of the ages, even as we take the step to evangelize for him, or to go to those schools and reach out to students. He is faithful. And so we can rest in God's hands, knowing that God is faithful. However, please, as you engage with the spiritual warfare, as you engage with the ritual, children, let's be realistic about the issues. We should not blame or keep giving the devil credit for everything. I think hopefully we've stopped this, but there is a time that even if a plate fell from somebody's hands, tasema shetani shidwe. I mean, where is shetani in breaking of a plate? So it's a normal accident that has happened in the kitchen. Maybe you are the one to blame because you kept the plate just close to the sink where it can fall and break. So I always say, Christians, let's differentiate issues. There are those issues that are really human and they are normal for every human being to go through. And there are those issues that are to be blamed of the devil. Let's teach our children, let's teach our people that choices have consequences. But I listen to this time and again, and all the time, because counseling is my way of life. Somebody comes and says, sorry, I'll use a very crazy word here, the one they use. And they tell me, Madam, that time somebody is fidgeting, they're so anxious. Shit happened. And I did 1, 2, 3, and I aborted, and now I cannot sleep. I am more so anxious. I'm seeing, see you what? Okay. When you took the first step, how did this happen? Whatever you are calling it. There was a plan. There was a way. You are not telling me you were raped. You need to know that the consequences of A leads to B. And so let's teach our people, let's teach even ourselves that whatever action we take will come out with an outcome. And this outcome could be the one that will give us stress for the rest of our lives. This consequence will give us stress. And if it happens, then we have to plan to see how we can deal with it before we leave it to the devil or resign. Wacha Mungu tu afanye kile anataka. Is it God? Many times we blame either devil or God on things that really it's our personal failure. Anyway, let's look at psychological very quickly. I realize my time is over. There's what we call desensitization, especially for normal fears. We don't need to live in fear. We can be helped by a counselor who would help us to do the desensitization, especially visiting the place where maybe an accident happened and people don't want to pass through there. Imagine if somebody maybe passed on in your house, which is the main house, which happens all the time. I mean, people die and they die from somewhere. And then this person can never feel comfortable in that house. They are so afraid. They are so what? We sometimes encourage what we call a systematic desensitization, slowly helping the person to relax. That's a part of the cognitive behavioral therapy. You help the person to relax, then systematically you take this person to the place slowly. I know it works because I did it with the bomb blast people even before I did counseling. That time I had only social work. And I know it works. It helps to help the person. There are other people that they may not even have the opportunity to be systematically desensitized, but you planned them. You take them to that place and you help them to cope with the issue. And then from there, they get out. I have already done the breathing exercise and the grounding. They help us to relax. Finally, brethren, please, let's try to be at peace with everyone. This is biblical. There are so many verses that you tell us that. I think I have one or two of them. These two, make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. And then, if possible, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Why did I look at this as a way, as a spiritual way of looking, dealing with the stress? It's because most of the stressors are from outside of us. Yes, there are those that really come from within us, but most of the triggers could be coming from our behavior outside us. And so the Bible says, as much as it depends on you, be at peace, make effort. You will not be at peace with everybody, because there are some people that will not like you for one thing or the other. There are people who will not agree with you. There are people whom you will differ with, and especially in the family setup, the extended family, and what? You can be anxious forever. You can be so afraid about what people will say, because maybe you have some issue with maybe even with your spouse or with your child is turning wayward. If it is not within your ability, don't kill yourself, don't beat yourself, just trust the Lord to change them, because He is also their God, and you are God's child, and trust in the Lord to give you victory. And that said and done, may I release you to go to Christ, the cross, where everything will be sorted. The world is fallen. It is at the cross where we find hope of defeating the evil of anxiety, worry, and fears. We cannot do it on our own. It's only Christ who can do it for us. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. Thank you for inviting me to do this. God bless you. Back to Adrian.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Ruth. We really appreciate for your time. I realize time is a bit spent, but I will not close the chance for anyone with a burning question. And then I'll request Brother Derito, you will give a final comment, vote of thanks, and pray with us. But in the meantime, anyone with a burning question or comment, kindly, it's your chance.
You can read what is on the chat. But I can. It's all right. I'm the one who wrote it. Our sister Ruth. There is a slide that you jumped, and I think it has some nice points on how to deal with fear, worry, and anxiety. In slide number 20, if you don't mind, you can sort of read through. I was very keen.
Is it that one?
Yes.
Sister Ruth, maybe you can comment on these ones, the positive self-talk and such.
She may need to unmute.
Sorry, I was talking without unmuting. Okay. Sorry, I didn't see this. I think I was in a hurry to finish. But yes, as we do our reflections, our thoughts about what causes us fear, worry, and anxiety, there are times that we will need to speak to ourselves. I know this could have a negative, whatever thoughts in some people, but really what we mean is not speaking loudly to yourself, is that one of telling yourself good, things, affirming yourself. That sincerely speaking, I have done my best, maybe to be at peace with so and so. Maybe I've done my best to allow myself to be, ministered to. Maybe I have sought help from somebody and I have not really, the journey is not yet over. So don't give up on yourself and always keep on beating yourself or downgrading yourself. Know that even recovery is a journey. So please try your best. Number 2, also on self-talk. Christians sometimes, some people will not become Christians because they feel like we are always condemned and condemning ourselves. I think it reaches a time, yes, it is good. We of course give the glory to God, but it's good also to pat ourselves and say, there, I did well. Today I didn't speak the way I speak all the time. And come up with a list of good things about yourself that can encourage you to keep on moving. That is something important. The other one is seek counseling. Counseling facilities are there. I am so grateful to God for the campaigns that we have done in this country, and for maybe once we are seeing even people with NHIF receiving counseling services without having to pay. If you have a better even insurance cover, mental health is covered, you can go to a trained professional for whatever issue that you're going through. I was so privileged to learn of this, that you can walk into an hospital, and even if they don't have a resident counselor, the doctor can sign for you to, they can call a counselor in the hospital, and you get counseled and you get help. So let's not fear counseling. And also, let's not equate counseling with the psychiatric care. Psychiatric care is very different from counseling. Counseling, we work with the people who are reasoning, people who are normal, people who are experiencing ability to think through issues. And like in psychiatry, where they have to inject somebody, they have to give drugs and all that. So I think it's very important. And especially if you are a teacher, you are working with those kids who many a times they are being sent, they're doing something, acting out so that maybe they are suspended. I have one who in less than 3 weeks, they have been suspended 3 times. And you wonder, when are they in school? So there could be a behavior, something that is triggering them. Maybe at home, there's no peace. They're fearing their mother to come back. They come back after the term, and they find that the mother has been killed. And that will keep them coming home back and forth. And they need help. So I'm really encouraging that there are cases that can help. And if we get good counselors, they can now escalate the issue to the psychiatrist. Accept referral for psychiatric care and medication. Yes, we are believers. We are children of God, but we are not immune to the worldly pain. If you can accept you have diabetes, you have headache, you have stomachache, and go to hospital for all those thorough checkups, cancers and what we are being checked. Why can't we believe mental illness, mental issues are as real? I don't know. I have never understood why we think the brain cannot get sick. Yet when they show you the scan, they'll tell you it's the amygdala that is not doing its job. It's the thalamus. Thalamus is like an eye, an ear. It's a part of the brain that is not functioning the way it is supposed to function. So let's not fear the care, the medical care. But psychiatry shouldn't come before we try counseling, because sometimes when also people are put on medication, they can be addicted in a way, and sometimes it doesn't solve the problem if the problem was behavioral. Then accept that you are, sorry, there is a R missing there, you are human and can be predisposed to all these challenges. Sorry that I skipped that. I'm grateful you showed me. Thank you.
Is it for one to be anxious or to have fear and worry, and the object of the same is good things, not basically bad things?
Yes, Zachary, thank you for that question. It helps me to restate that there is a population that is naturally, genetically predisposed to feeling anxious, feeling worried, and having a lot of fears. There are also even those that are not naturally predisposed, but they are learned from their environment. So you may not have done anything to cause it, but you're still on the edge. Like, for instance, also even when you go through trauma and you're anxious, what role did you play? Just an incident happened and it is causing you that. So always remember there's the genetic component that really naturally people just feel they're on the edge. And those ones, there is no option. They have to be on medication just to help them have some ability or functionality. Otherwise, if let alone, it can develop to something that they cannot even open the door and get out of the door and see the light of the day or be with the people.
In his 30s, and I've been tasked with the responsibility of trying to talk to him, and I was suggesting that maybe he may need intervention, probably, what do you call this thing, rehab or things like that. But he says, no, I have no problem. So how do you help somebody who feels he needs you're sure he needs help, but he's sure he doesn't need any help. He doesn't have any problem.
Oh my, substance use disorder. It's a disease, or let me also generalize, mental illnesses. Majority of people who will have a mental illness will rarely accept, because what they are supposed to use to judge that they are sick is not functioning properly. You know, when you are cut on the hand, it's the brain that will say you're cut. Tie the hand and go to hospital. Now, if it's the brain itself, which is supposed to say that is not saying it, do you see how hard it is to convince this person? So, James, I will say, if you think it is a serious problem, one, even myself nowadays, I don't take alcoholics in this when they are real alcoholics. I would rather send them to the psychiatrist, get the medication, the rehab issue, and then now from there we start. Because when they are sick, because alcoholism is a sickness of the brain, it's just a disorder like the anxiety level, or even worse, because really the alcohol destroys the brain itself. So we cannot wait for this person to agree, because they will never. So in the medical, in the practice today, Nakanda and other organizations have allowed, or they have passed a policy that somebody has to be pushed, is it coercing? Yani anakuja anashikwa kama tu mwenda wazimu, anapelekwa. By the time they get there, if they get good people who will counsel them, who will treat them and talk to them for a bit of a long period of time. Because the other thing we do in Kenya is that we take somebody to rehab for 21 days. And we say, tulimpeleka rehab. What did he learn in those days? He was only going through the medication, detox, nothing else. So it requires a bit of a longer period of time for the person to go through the detox, get the cells coming back, and then from there now you start putting sense in him, talking to him. In fact, the late Kasahala won't say, if you want somebody to recover from those substance use disorder, is that he is in rehab for like 6 months and he is followed through consistently for the next 3 years. Where when he touches, somebody screams and says, I'm wounded, and so it is a very difficult disease to treat, the disease of the brain to treat. However, it is treatable. So please, don't wait for him to accept, because he won't accept. There's no way you can convince somebody who is mentally sick to accept that they are sick. So there is that room to persuade them, to coerce them, to pick them. I know there are people who are now doing that service of going to homes, picking those who have refused to go to rehab and taking them by force. It has to be done because we want to save them. I don't know how practical that one is for you, but I believe you can work around it. We can keep talking about it and see what can be done. Thank you.